to prove that John's innocent, and he's still like this innovative, super tech oriented genius, and that everything's going to be fine. And ultimately, I said this in a space as well the other day, but the reason I'm interested in looking at people's wallets and finding out how much money they've lost is because there's absolutely a correlation between how much money somebody's lost and how far they're willing to go to look the other way, to the fraud and theft that's gone on. Because I guess a lot of people, I think the majority of people will just say, that's $2,000 I wasted, or that's $10,000 I wasted, and hey ho, I'll have to do something else to try and recover my losses. But a lot of the kind of less morally upstanding people will, whether they realise they're doing it or not, but basically just turn a blind eye to everything that's wrong, all the red flags of Safemoon, and will continue to promote it and continue to pretend like the things that they do are innovative in order to draw new people in, to try and bring the price of the token back up. I just fundamentally really disagree with people who do that. I think that is like a really morally horrible thing to do.
Yeah, it just becomes like, well, this is quite an interesting thing to perceive as far as the psychology of investors. All right, so we are finally live on YouTube and Twitter. TNG, thanks for coming on. I guess maybe the best way to go about this is, maybe if you don't mind, quickly going over what it is that you found and how that's different from what that is in the past.
It's not materially that different from stuff that Strider produced, and then that obviously built into Coffee's videos. I feel like the kind of Strider Bootsy camp and the Coffee camp were both looking at the wrong sort of end of it. They were looking for misappropriation of funds from Bitmart, where we obviously see $23 million coming out of Bitmart into John's two different wallets. And that's just the sum total for those two different wallets. And there was a lot of conversation about, oh, well, this is theft of the 5% of the liquidity pool, which, it's impossible to prove because all of that happens on Bitmart's closed system, which isn't on chain, right?
Yeah.
While trying to talk to somebody in the Safemoon community about, if they got this money legitimately through, for example, a market maker, which it definitely can't be for 3 different reasons, but I won't get into it yet, then they should be able to show me transactions going into Bitmart where they're sending them lots of tokens and lots of USD to make a market for people who want to buy and sell Safemoon. So that then prompted myself and Amy to basically extract every single transaction for the Deployer 1 wallet and the Deployer 2 wallet. And just a quick explanation, when Kyle started Safemoon, or Safemoon Dev started Safemoon, he used a Deployer wallet. Obviously that, you can mint the tokens and you can have the ownership of the liquidity pools and stuff. On the 1st of April, that ownership transferred to Thomas and John. So that's the Deployer 2 wallet. And the Deployer 2 wallet is where we see the vast majority of the theft. But there are quite a lot of thefts that happen on the first Deployer wallet. So what we did is we extracted every single transaction from Deployer 1 and Deployer 2, and that's all the BNB, all the wrapped BNB, all the tokens. And then I laid it out on a timeline and just got rid of all the crap, because Deployer 1 minted a bunch of tokens before he minted Safemoon, he minted give me your money token and all this other shit, and CoffeeZilla goes into this. But by putting it in a timeline, and this is a crucial thing, and having a visual guide for all the transactions all in order, you can see really, really clearly what happened. And that's what my article, if I might share it on screen, but that's what my article goes into, because it kind of sets up an explanation of what a liquidity pool is, and it shows you with the proof from the CertiK audit that they got in May 2021 how they are able to gain ownership of far more liquidity pool tokens than they should have. legitimately, right? So with these liquidity pool tokens, they're able to withdraw far, far more assets from the liquidity pool than they've ever put in. So as an example, the deployer one wallet only ever put about 3 or 4 BNB of liquidity in, along with some trillions of tokens. But that same wallet is able to withdraw over 900 BNB and nearly 100 trillion tokens from the liquidity. And this exploit in the contract, it's a badly written contract. And Kyle isn't, obviously, he's not a developer, and obviously neither is John. And I don't really think Thomas probably had any interest in figuring out if they can fix it or not, because they all three of them are exploiting this, right? Every time Safemoon is interacted with, the Safemoon deploy wallet receives these liquidity pool tokens, which give them the ability to extract from the liquidity. And as Safemoon got more and more popular, they're then able to start extracting not just like 1,000 token BNB at a time, but tens of thousands. And in the largest liquidity extract they did in one go, it was 55,700 BNB, which was worth $37 million, and an equivalent amount of tokens. It was something like 3.6 trillion Safemoon tokens, which was worth, again, $37 million. So that's like a $74 million extract from liquidity in one go. Now, this is the sort of thing that Coffee has mentioned. Like he's kind of mentioned that there's a lot of large liquidity withdrawals, and it could be like a common defense of Safemooners that say, oh well, they need money for operations and stuff. I think it's pretty clear in the eyes of the law, the way the law is structured in the United States and in the Western world, that you cannot take something that doesn't belong to you. You cannot let investors spend their money and then you've got like a secret kind of back door to that money which enables you to just take it. And that's what we've seen. Now, another thing that Coffee didn't really go into, which is really important on my article, is you see exactly what they did with this money. And I think that this is kind of the thing that if you're a Safemoon holder and you're not willing to bury your head in the sand, this is perhaps the most insulting thing. Like, even me as somebody who's never bought or held Safemoon, I've never owned it, I find it like insulting, just as a kind of like, I can't believe they treated their holders like this. So what they would do, and this is something that Coffee never mentioned, or Strider or Bootsy, whoever, they withdraw tens and tens of thousands of BNB worth tens of millions of dollars. And then they take that, and that coincides when you withdraw from liquidity, you get both Safemoon tokens and BNB. They come out as a pair. They have to go in as a pair and they come out as a pair whenever you add or remove liquidity. So the Safemoon tokens, we'll just put them aside for a second. Immediately after they withdraw the BNB from the liquidity pool, that's the holder's money. Right, Safemoon did not put this money in the liquidity pool ever. They then market buy Safemoon tokens from PancakeSwap with that BNB. So they're taking the holder's money and then they're going onto PancakeSwap and buying Safemoon tokens with holders' money. So they put the BNB back in, but in exchange, they're then taking hundreds of billions and trillions of Safemoon tokens. And then they take the Safemoon tokens they withdrew from liquidity that they put aside, and they take the Safemoon tokens that they just bought with the holders' money, and they send it to Bitmart. And when you look at the price of Safemoon corresponding to the dates that they send all these tokens to Bitmart, the price crashes. And what do you think happens when just before they send to Bitmart, they buy all those tokens off the decentralized exchange PancakeSwap? They pump the price. So with one hand, they artificially pump the price of Safemoon with holders' money, and then with the other hand, they send their tokens to Bitmart, sell, crash the price, and keep all the USD for themselves. And that, I think, is such a disgusting way to basically extract money from the system, because they're kind of leading Safemoon holders on into thinking that, oh, there's a pump going on, look at this. And just to give you an example, After they extract that huge liquidity withdrawal of 55,700 BNB, they do another one for another 1,235. So they're in receipt of hang on, sorry, they're in receipt of just about 58,000 BNB at that point. They then market buy within 1 hour. It's within about 25 minutes. They market buy 58,221 BNB's worth of Safemoon. So that's a market buy of 3.8 trillion Safemoon on May the 12th. And that market buy is worth $34.4 million. So you can go onto PooCoin or DexScreen or whatever, find the Safemoon V1 liquidity pool that was on PancakeSwap, scroll back to May 12th at around 3 o'clock, you'll see a huge green candle because that Safemoon market buying $34 million in one go. Essentially, they do it on 3 transactions that are 25 minutes apart from each other. And any cryptocurrency that isn't like Bitcoin, it would absolutely rocket the price up if somebody just walked up to the exchange and dumped $34 million. And in fact, it caused the all-time high. So the all-time high price of Safemoon, where it was like, I can't remember how many zeros, but it basically lost a zero and you had like 1 1. That was caused by Safemoon spending the holders' money that they'd extracted from the liquidity pool just minutes before, and then they send those tokens to Bitmart. And while the price is high, arbitrage obviously happens between the exchange and the decentralized exchange and Bitmart. Arbitrage happens to bring the prices kind of more in line. And then they exploit that higher price on Bitmart to sell their tokens to take their millions of dollars out. And that's basically what I found. And they don't do this once. There's 19 liquidity removals on the Deployer 2 wallet that is owned by John and Thomas. And every single one of those liquidity removals is followed by just 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s market buys of Safemoon. So as an example, then one of the other liquidity removals they do, which is on the 20th of May, that was worth $15.2 million. So that's 19,156 BNB and 1.2 trillion tokens. They then buy themselves Safemoon tokens off PancakeSwap for 19,250 BNB, and they do it over 62 transactions, and that's done over from 11:30 to 4:15. So let's call it about 4 hours time. And again, all this does is it just pumps the price of Safemoon up artificially, and then straight away they're sending out 200 billion tokens there, and then a bit later on in early June, they send 2 trillion to Bitmart again. And this is just a pattern that goes all the way through. So that's what we see.
Okay, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, and then afterwards, if anybody wants to ask any questions on the YouTube side of things or the Twitter space, if you want to come up and say anything or ask any questions, you're welcome to once we kind of run over this. I'm trying to make sure that I understand correctly what we're talking about. And this was in the audit, right? And it was like a major warning in the audit.
Yeah.
This says partially resolved, right?
Yeah.
And this is where they had,
So the audit obviously flags up. It says over time, the owner address will accumulate a significant portion of LP tokens. So just a real quick explanation, just really simple. When you have a decentralized liquidity pool, normally people can add liquidity to it, like any old guy, right? And what happens is, for example, I use my example because I've added some moons and Ethereum to the Sushi Swap liquidity pool, and all that happens is in a transaction, it's approximately the same amount, so it's $90 worth of moons and $90 worth of Ethereum I put into the liquidity pool token, and as part of the smart contract, what you get back is LP tokens, like liquidity pool tokens, right? And you think of these like an IOU. It just says you are entitled to this much liquidity. Okay, so when I decide that I want my moons and Ethereum back, I send my LP tokens back to the liquidity pool, and I get my original assets back, plus some small amount of fees. And when I say small, it's like 0.5%, right? And that's my reward for providing liquidity, for enabling people to trade. So just to read this again, it says on the Certic audit, over time, the owner address will accumulate a significant portion of LP tokens. So the implication of that is that Safemoon will gain the ability to extract far more assets than they ever put into the liquidity pool. And we have seen that Safemoon have exploited this.
Is it, and I'm not sure, maybe these questions will be hard to answer. Is it like Kyle made it this way, or is it just they just kind of copied a contract that already had this?
Yeah, the B token contract and the Safemoon contract are absolutely identical, except that they control F B and replace it with Safemoon, and then they just changed the tax. B token had a 2% and a 3% tax, and Safemoon made it 5% and 5% to make it 10%. That's literally the only changes in the contract. So any glitch or bug that's in the Safemoon V1 contract is in the B token contract.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I was just wondering if you could tell, and you probably can't, if it was intentional or just like a
No,
bad
no, it's not
developer.
intentional, no. But I think that you know, I said this before, and this is pure speculation. So like flash that on screen, because this isn't based in any kind of. There's no proof to this. I just think, from looking at the behavior of Kyle, Thomas, and John, I think that they just thought, oh, it's crypto, it's the Wild West, there's no repercussion, we've got like an infinite money printer. Like that's how I think that they thought that they found an infinite money glitch where they can just
like freaking Office Space.
yeah,
they just fractions of a penny.
They just thought, oh, there's no consequence to this. People can still trade the token, that's fine, and so they're removing liquidity. Another thing to consider that again, it's like a kind of insult to Safemoon holders is that when liquidity is withdrawn, it makes the price more volatile, and that goes in both directions. So any buys will spike the price higher, but likewise, anyone who wants to sell will crash the price a lot more. So if you have $1 million worth of Safemoon and the liquidity pool for Safemoon is worth $5 million, then if you decide to sell everything in one go, your sell is worth 1/5 of all of the liquidity, and it will have a huge price impact. So you won't be able to get $1 million worth of Safemoon out. You'd end up probably getting like 600k or 200k or something. The more liquidity that's in there, the more that you can extract it or buy and get the price that's kind of estimated. So it punishes everybody by taking liquidity pool money out. It has a negative impact on everybody. You can still buy and sell the token, but it will, it's very volatile in price. And as we can see, the price went all sorts of places in, throughout April and May. And then it's just been going crashing down ever since.
So I'm trying to understand this. When they add liquidity, is that coming from the 5% liquidity tax in the beginning?
Have you got the sheet open I sent you?
Yeah, I'm staring at it. I mean, it's on YouTube right now. At the very
beginning.
Yeah.
Like the one on the 2nd of March on Deployer 1.
Because like there's remove liquidity and there's add liquidity, right?
Yeah.
And it says that they get tokens from the add liquidity function. It gives them access to the liquidity. And like I thought that how Thomas got those tokens was that he was trying to migrate the PancakeSwap V1 liquidity, and instead of migrating it, they used it as a buy, and then potentially took all those Safemoon tokens and sold it on Bitmart.
Yeah, that's essentially what's happening. Like it doesn't matter which pool it's coming out of, right? Because they're just taking liquidity out, and they have the ability. Like, look, let's say they've got 1,000 LP tokens, and they need to move the liquidity from PancakeSwap V1 to PancakeSwap V2, and all they need to do is submit their 1,000 LP tokens, take their trillions of Safemoon and their tens of thousands of BNB out, and then simply deposit them both as liquidity into the new pool. but that's not what's happening. They're taking both assets out, holding on to one half, using the BNB, putting that into the pool by buying Safemoon. So they're taking more Safemoon out of the pool, and then they're taking both of those groups of Safemoon they just like extracted and sending them off to Bitmart.
Yeah, and it seems like, and I have another question after that, which
Cool.
might be a rough one, but it seems like if you take liquidity out and then you take BNB, you create a buy, you've raised the price. Well, yeah, and by removing that liquidity, it makes the price go up more because
Yeah, it's more
the more liquidity you
volatile.
have, the less the price moves, which also means the more it's going to go down. So you raise the price, and then I don't know. I guess you'd have to be able to look at potentially and see if you can track them selling that, actually selling those tokens on Bitmart. I don't know if you can track that to see did arbitrage happen first and then they sold, or what did
Yeah,
that look
you
like?
can't, and
Uh,
this is unfortunately the kind of like the safe space that a lot of people who are really invested in Safemoon will kind of retreat, and they will say, "Oh, well, you can't prove what happened on Bitmart because it's a centralized exchange, or it all happens off chain." Absolutely true. However, when you see trillions of tokens moving over to Bitmart and then the price absolutely plummeting after they sent those tokens over, it's not a difficult conclusion to make, because it's not just one time it happens over and over. And I'll give you another example. The 28th of August, that's when the wallet was supposed to launch, and when it didn't launch, they had the countdown, and John Corona saying 10 minutes till the wallet launches, guys, and they had the little countdown. They withdrew some liquidity just before the wallet launch, just before the countdown was supposed to complete, and they sent that to Bitmart and sold those. And well, they sent those tokens to Bitmart, and then the price collapsed. And that happened on the 28th when they're supposed to launch the wallet. And that's just another
yeah,
example.
man.
And put it this way: they've sent how many tokens is it to Bitmart in
It,
total?
does this align with, because you get Tether when you sell on
Yeah,
Bitmart,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It
Does that
aligns
align
with
with the
Tether
money?
coming out of. They hold it in Bitmart for a little bit, but yeah, no Tether comes out of Bitmart before they were sending tokens over. Because if you look at the deployer 2 timeline page, one of the first things the deployer does, because they get 4 trillion tokens from the first deployer, right? One of the first things the deployer 2 wallet does, which is on the 8th of April and then again on the 14th of April, is it sends about 4.3 trillion tokens of Safemoon to the Gabe wallet. And the Gabe wallet receives those tokens and then just starts sending them to Bitmart. And he's getting USDT back out. If you look at the Gabe wallet on BSC scan to look at the Binance Smart Chain side of it, you will see payments of Safemoon tokens going into Bitmart. And then if you look at the Gabe wallet on Ether scan to get on the Ethereum side of the wallet, you will see USD tokens coming back in. So it's, he sends a bunch of tokens, the deploy sends a bunch of tokens to the Gabe wallet, the Gabe wallet sends them to Bitmart, and then the Gabe wallet receives loads of Safemoon, loads of USD Tether. Like, what's the conclusion there?
That needs to be like diagrammed out.
Yeah.
I know it takes some time to do.
Oh,
Because
mate.
like what that could mean, and I've always thought about this as like if they're the ones destroying the price, then it would just be like the worst case scenario, especially with the wallet launch. Like one of the things when the wallet was launching, because I was talking to a lot of other YouTubers at that time, and they were getting inside information because people talked, and they were saying like, dude, they know they didn't have a wallet
Yeah,
ready, and they still did the countdown, and then a major sell-off
yeah.
happened.
I spoke to. I've basically been speaking to this moderator. He was part of the Reddit Safemoon page, the official one, and they were getting all these official communication from the community managers at Safemoon, and they were saying regarding the beta signups for the wallet, they basically said it needs to be kept internal only, but the beta doesn't do anything. The sign up doesn't do anything. There is no beta wallet. We're just trying to buy some time, and this is way back in late July and August.
Yeah, and I mean, what that could potentially mean, and I don't like jumping to conclusions, but what that could potentially mean is that they were pumping the price to sell on us, like with their own liquidity, with that option, knowing that they didn't have anything. And like, I don't know if it could get worse than that for a project, you know. But I've also seen some stuff kind of behind the scenes of them freaking out about like not having the wallet ready. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure how all that connects.
David shared a video that he recorded of John, Jack, and Ryan basically just screaming at each other, like at top of their lungs, just calling each other names because like they basically come to the realization that whatever they were promising the holders wasn't anywhere near ready. It's like a lot of communication breakdown, and like that's a pretty wild video to watch.
Yeah, yeah, and that does seem to paint at least paint the picture that it's like they weren't intentionally saying, "Oh, we've got nothing, but let's pump the price," right, and hurt
Yeah,
our own
perhaps not. Yeah,
project.
yeah.
But
I wouldn't like jump to that conclusion because I don't think it's fair to immediately assume the worst about Safemoon. Like, it's Occam's razor, isn't it? Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity, or in this case, it could just be like ignorance or whatever. Like, it's totally fine. Like, they're new to crypto, all these guys. So
so I guess one thing that I feel like would help me is what is the difference between this error, this major flaw in the contract that allows them to gain liquidity and them just removing liquidity?
sorry, say that again.
Or because, like, I guess I'm not seeing how it all connects because before this, you know, the understanding was when they went to migrate liquidity, unless that's the same thing, like how they migrate liquidity is how they gain access to it. Because when I
No,
was
no,
looking at
they
this
they always they
major,
no they
okay,
they always have access to the liquidity pool because every time people are using the swap and liquidify, well, every time the swap and liquidify function executes when people are trading Safemoon or doing whatever with it, they're gaining liquidity pool tokens like more than they should have done, right?
and this is separate than them just migrating liquidity, or is this
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same
So
thing?
like
Like
the
that's what I'm.
migrating of liquidity only happened because Pancake Swap liquidity pool was hard coded into the Safemoon contract, which they can change. So when PancakeSwap said, "Oh, we've got a new contract address coming out, and people need to migrate liquidity over," what any legitimate, this is what I was saying earlier, what any legitimate developer would do, or owner of the contract would do, is they say, "Look, we've got 1,000 liquidity pool tokens. It entitles us. Just going to use easy numbers here. We've got 1,000 liquidity pool tokens. It entitles us to 1,000 BNB and 1,000 Safemoon. So what we're going to do is we're going to send our liquidity pool tokens back to the contract. We'll get our 1,000 BNB back and our 1,000 Safemoon back. And then what we'll do is we'll go to the new contract, the V2 version of PancakeSwap, and then we'll submit 1,000 BNB and 1,000 Safemoon. And then we will take 1,000 liquidity pool tokens back of the new liquidity pool. But instead, what happens is John and Thomas withdraw liquidity. They keep the Safemoon for themselves. They spend the BNB at the new liquidity pool for PancakeSwap. And by spending their BNB to buy Safemoon, they're taking Safemoon out of the pool and putting BNB in. So Thomas is there on Discord going, "Hey, I've just pumped the price of Safemoon for all of you guys. Don't you love it?" Meanwhile, there's less
Yeah,
assets in
everybody's
the
celebrating. Yeah.
yeah. Meanwhile, there's less assets in the liquidity pool. Safemoon take this new batch of tokens they've just bought and the batch of tokens they removed from the first liquidity pool, and they're sending them to Bitmart. Like, let me using this sheet I've got on Deployer 2, they've removed 13.7 trillion tokens from liquidity from early April all the way down until the 2nd of September. They've sent out 21, well, basically 22 trillion, because they also bought that difference in tokens from the BNB they extracted. So they've gained access to so much more assets than they ever set up in the first place. And this is
You know,
what
if
this
those
sheet demonstrates, like really, really easily, by putting it in a timeline and color coding things and explaining this is the wallet, this is Ben Phillips' wallet, this is John's wallet, this is the Bitmart wallet, this is a liquidity, the Safemoon swap liquidity pool that they seeded, this is the deploy 3 wallet. You can see where all these tokens are going.
What would be the Maxi response to this, or Safemoon's response? Would be like, oh, we just sent the Safemoon to
I
Bitmart
guess,
to provide liquidity.
yeah, that's a load of horseshit. So Thomas provided a screenshot from conversations between him and John. If you're on a sheet, go onto the assets page, and then you kind of have to scroll down a bit. But John says to Thomas,
the one where he admits the K wallet.
No. Scroll up from that. It's sort of near the top of the page on the assets page. John says, I'll just say it out so everyone in the space can hear it. On the 12th of May, 2021, John says, yeet 200 billion to the normal Bitmart market maker account. And that could be construed as somewhere that they're providing liquidity for sales to happen on Bitmart, right? And then John says, you make it over to the Iron Bank, okay? And the Iron Bank is, we found out from Thomas, is what they refer to the liquidity pool as. So when they say, go to the Iron Bank and get these tokens, they're saying, rip them out of the liquidity pool. John's like spamming Thomas, trying to get him to pick up a call, and he says, where did you go? It needs to be done time now. And then
like spam called him like 5 times.
Yeah, literally. And then Thomas finally, I refuse to call him Papa, Thomas finally calls John back. And then John clarifies helpfully in text. He says, we need 4.3 trillion tokens are needed. And he says 4.1 to new address. And remember that. And then he says 200 billion to this one starting in OXC5, right? But just to spice this up a bit for everybody listening, because I'm just talking shit at this point, you can go back to the deploy to timeline and find exactly those tokens, exactly the amount. So 4.1 trillion and then another 200 billion tokens. So the one that's 200 billion, John's already flagged up as being the market maker account, right? The one that they may need liquidity for. And the other one seems to be John's personal deposit for Bitmart. So that's the token. So basically, when you sign up on a KEX, they will give you like a kind of wallet address that you send tokens to, which then gets sent into the KEX. And this one seems to be one that only John has deposited tokens to. So
So the one that he lists the wallet address for what they call the normal Bitmart market maker account. I looked at this a while ago.
Yeah. So when you then filter all the transactions out of the deployer wallet, which is the owner of Safemoon, right? They're the ones. The deployer wallet is the one who has the ability to add and remove liquidity. If you filter to all the transactions sent from the deployer wallet to Bitmart, you can sum up all of the market maker transactions, and that is just under 1.1 trillion tokens. And then you can sum up all of the transfers to John's Bitmart deposit, and that's 6.8, nearly 6.9 trillion tokens. So John receives 6 to 7 times the amount of tokens that the quote unquote market maker receives. And then we also see that John accepts $23 million back out of Bitmart.
Yeah. So that would just be like pulling liquidity, buying Safemoon, selling Safemoon on an exchange so you can hide it, and then sending it to your wallet.
Yeah,
it's just selling the liquidity.
And I guess a common sort of like, I'm expecting to hear it a lot, is kind of like, oh, well, the money was needed for operations. They've got to pay salaries. I agree. They have to pay salaries. They've got to buy assets. They've got to buy premises, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, whether they spend it on speedboats and hookers and cocaine, or whether they spend it on legitimate business things, it's irrelevant, because the money never, ever belonged to them in the first place. Now, the thing that I was talking to Sky about this last night, and we just kind of were sort of shooting a shit about it. And it seems like Safemoon's been set up like a totally decentralized crypto where kind of the people in the community are the ones that are making the products, right? The people in the community are the ones who are doing the marketing, and the people in the community are the ones who are sort of like encouraging people to how to use the token and educating and stuff. But Safemoon themselves, like John, Thomas, and Kyle, are treating Safemoon like it's had a kind of legitimate source of revenue all along. So they're like, just to put this in better words, really, with the V2 token, they take 1% of every trade. And in my eyes, that is 100% totally bona fide, totally kosher, totally legal, totally cool revenue, right? As Trump would say, very legal, very cool. And that's absolutely, can't argue with it, can't complain. That's the terms of the token. And traders should know, and holders or whoever should know, when they trade Safemoon, there's a 10% tax, 5% is reflected, 4% whatever, 3% whatever, and 1% is to support Safemoon in the things that they need to do, right? So that structure never existed in V1. It was simply 5% goes to the holders and 5% goes to the liquidity pool, which benefits the holders. But now what we see is 5% go to the liquidity pool, but actually the ownership of those tokens, the LP tokens, like not the ownership, it's the ability to withdraw the liquidity goes to Safemoon themselves. So while the holders and the investors and people buying and selling Safemoon are filling up the liquidity pools because they're trading with the token and they're buying it and selling it and loving it, their liquidity is sort of being moved into Safemoon's pockets. And that's the big problem with it, because if you go back to the assets page, you can see over and over how many times Safemoon tweeted saying, oh, liquidity pools are locked. The whole reason the fucking token is called Safemoon is because, Kyle advertised it as like, we're going to lock the liquidity pool and we can't rug you because the liquidity pool's locked. That's the whole reason it's called Safemoon.
And it seems like it would have worked if they didn't have access to liquidity. That's another one of those things that drives me crazy.
For sure.
The video of John or Hank saying, John, we're getting a lot of FUD. We need to lock the liquidity, and he wouldn't lock the liquidity. And he said, in Hank's own words, he said, and John wanted to rug the LP.
There are 4 locks of liquidity that happen. So 3 on deploy 1 and 1 on deploy 2. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. Because like when they lock liquidity, they're like, just everyone concentrate here. They're not locking BNB or Safemoon tokens. What they're locking is the LP tokens that they've received from the busted contract. Okay, so they can lock them away, but then they wait a week, and all these people frantically buying and selling Safemoon have just recharged their balance of LP tokens, which then enables them to send more. Like, here's an example. On the 21st of April, which coincides with the date that John says, oh, yeah, we're locking liquidity, they locked 27,388 LP tokens. They then had to wait 2 weeks until the 6th of May, and then they withdrew 777 BNB and 89 billion tokens. So that liquidity withdrawal is worth just shy of $1 million. Right? And then they send those tokens to Bitmart. So they withdrew 89 billion and they sent 80 billion to Bitmart. And then they have to wait a little bit longer. So that was on the 6th of May. 6 days later, on the 12th of May, they then withdraw 14,871 tokens of BNB and 963 billion Safemoon. And then a few hours later, they sort of come back for the rest and they take 55,705 BNB worth $37 million. And 3.6 trillion Safemoon tokens worth, again, $37 million. And when you extract liquidity, it's done in a pair, and the pair has an equivalent value. And those tokens go to Bitmart straight after.
So, and like, this is the thing that they said, yeah, we can take the LP, but if we did, we'd go to jail. That was their response in the audit.
The big Fugazi. That's it. They said, if we take the LP, we're publicly doxxed and we'll go to jail. Well, I don't know. I can't fucking explain that. Did they think that nobody was watching or what? Because I just,
Well, it seems like you have we have every in my perspective, you have everything that points to, and the biggest question that surrounds this is, guys, where did Safemoon get their money? Safemoon can't answer that. The mods
No,
can't
yeah.
answer that. The people that are trying to answer that are saying that it's the 2% tax that literally didn't exist back
Until
then.
December
And
of 21. Yeah, and look, SafeMoon make legitimate revenue on the swap. Like, I'm not going to argue that either. If Grove want to spend $100,000 to be listed on the swap, then, or Revoltants or BBTF or whoever, then that's, hey, John, enjoy it, mate. Buy a sports car. I don't care. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. If that's what Grove think being listed on the SafeMoon swap is worth, and they're willing to pay it, then John, go and spend it. Enjoy yourself. However, before the Safemoon swap, they had no legitimate way to make money. And interestingly, you might think, or some people might say, well, surely they bought themselves tokens, right? They did, but only Kyle. And Kyle participated in the pre-sale that happened on the 1st of March. So the 1st of March, 1 quadrillion Safemoon is minted, and then the pre-sale was for 70 BNB. And basically, you can join part of the pre-sale and you can buy like 0.2 BNB worth of tokens, or 0.3 or 0.5 or 1 or 2, whatever. Kyle bought 0.3 BNB worth of tokens, which gave him 3 trillion. And then he immediately fucking sends them out and sells them. So all of the money that Kyle played with, don't forget, we've only been talking about Thomas and John really here, but Kyle was doing this sort of stuff as well. He was withdrawing liquidity. Like I said, he put in 3.76 BNB into the LP. He withdrew 933 BNB and 94.2 trillion tokens. He sent out 67 trillion tokens, and he also sold 61 trillion tokens. And then the difference that you might notice there, he did put back into the LP about 40 trillion. So that all balances out. What Kyle was really fond of doing was taking the BNB that he removes from the liquidity pool, swapping it for Binance USD, and then sending it off to all sorts of different wallets for, I don't know, God knows what. But this is all happening in sort of very early March. But it's just
would be
greasy.
my
It's
guess,
just
but
greasy shit all the way down. And it's clearly not contained to Kyle, and it's not just contained to Thomas either. It's kind of John's ordering Thomas to do things, and Thomas is doing the same greasy shit as Kyle, and they're all breaking the kind of promise that they're making to holders about the liquidity being safe. And they're then, obviously, we can see they're withdrawing tens and tens of millions of dollars, and they're all buying like the best stuff for themselves and living their best lives. And meanwhile, I've got the wallets of 125 Safemoon like maxis, people that are like really involved, and their aggregate losses are like $2.3 million just among 120 people. And it's just
that's an interesting thing, is that some people that are convincing you that like I'm a scammer because I talked about Safemoon in the past, like they might literally actually be trying to scam you because they are down so much money
yeah.
and they're trying to not, recoup their losses or whatever.
Yeah, I kind of think that, because what I'm showing here, it's the picture that's been painted is factual. The only sort of bastion that like somebody who is dedicated to supporting Safemoon could say is, we don't know what happens on Bitmart, but it's kind of disingenuous, because if you draw like a timeline of events, again, it's remove liquidity, which they shouldn't do, which is illegal anyway, and then they buy their own tokens, causing an artificial pump, take those tokens and send them to Bitmart, and then there's a question mark because we can't see what happens in Bitmart, but then we can see that tens of millions of dollars are coming out of Bitmart into John's personal wallet. So it's like, yeah, we can't really see what it's like. It's like you watch a car go into a tunnel on one side, and then the car comes back out on the other side, and it's like, well, I'm just guessing it went into the tunnel. I couldn't see it go through the tunnel, but I'm going to assume it went through the tunnel because it came out the other side. Whereas the Safemoon maxis are like, yeah, it went in, and then actually as a transformer, and it transformed into Bumblebee, and then it, fought fucking Megatron or whatever, I don't know Transformers, and then came back out the tunnel and it's fine. It's like, you can't make up this fantastical scenario that happened in that small stretch of blank space. It's like tokens in, dollars out. What do you do with an exchange? You send it tokens and you get dollars back out. It's the same when you send your shit to Binance when you want to sell it.
Let me say this real quick. So yeah, if you're on the YouTube side of things and you guys have a question or you want to come up in the Twitter space, you're definitely welcome to. And if you're on the Twitter side of things, if you're requesting, we're just kind of trying to make sure we hit all the main points, and then I'll open it up. I don't know how long
No,
TNG has, but
I've said it. I've said all I need to say.
okay, well, there's a couple things I want to say. There's two things I want to say real fast, and one is that like I was saying earlier, there's like this picture being painted that nobody in the team won't say where they got millions of dollars before they ever had a way of making money. They didn't have a swap, they didn't have a 2% tax, and John was buying $1 million mansion and they were spending millions, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have a good explanation for that, and when you ask them, you're probably going to get banned off of
No,
any
you do get
platform that
banned.
you ask that
You do
question.
get banned. Yeah. If you mention it, the Safemoon Twitter will block you.
Well,
You get banned off the Reddit. You get banned off the Discord.
On top of that, and if you look at everything that everybody's put together, a lot of people have put in work in this, and TNG and Coffee, and I've put some work into this as well. That everything looks like I'm looking at in front of me right now is John Crony, which is actually, I want to talk about this for 1 second. John Crony saying all on the same day. This is weird to me. We are locking away the current LP, which is $250 million worth of tokens. Then the same day, another tweet. I believe I've already proven our loyalty to you and the project. However, we will do so once again. And then the third tweet is, if you watched our AMAs, you would have known that the LP is a last resort, and we will publicly go to the community and let you know if the LP will be used and what for ahead of time. And it's like right there, they're admitting, like John's admitting, if we need to, we'll go to it, but we'll let you know. And they never told us they were touching the LP. They never said anything
it's
like
not
that.
a last resort because they do it like every fucking week. Like, how often can they need money? And how often can they need tens of millions of dollars? Like, it doesn't need to be said in any simpler terms than that. It's not a last resort. They did it all the way throughout April, May, June, July, and Kyle indeed was doing it all the way throughout March, top to bottom of March. He was ripping liquidity out.
So like kind of what I was saying.
And weirdly enough, on the 6th of March, Kyle, in control of Safemoon's Twitter, says we are sub 30k with liquidity locked for 4 years. But at that point, no liquidity had been locked. The first liquidity lock is, so he tweeted that on the 6th of March. First liquidity lock was on the 19th of March. What the fuck's that about? I haven't listened.
It's like all the evidence points towards them taking the LP and selling it. Like everything point. There's no excuse or no like other theory that has anything near equal weight to what everything is saying.
This is just John, but I'm not going to take up too much more time. But another thing is covering that on the deploy to timeline page. If you filter out all of the sort of blanks on the Safemoon transferred in column Q, and then filter out the blanks. Filter to the blank so you can see the people I don't know who these are transferred to. That's still like 320 billion tokens that get transferred to people, and some of them are transferred to wallets who then just sell it like a market sell. Like they receive 178 trillion tokens. Oh fucking hell, 178 billion tokens, and then they just sell it directly on PancakeSwap for BNB and shoot the BNB off to Binance or wherever to cash it out. So it's like, that's coming from the owner of Safemoon. So yeah, maybe they're paying somebody or something. But again, the source of all these trillions of tokens and the source of all these tens and hundreds of thousands of BNB has been the whole time the holders' liquidity pool money, and that's impacted negatively people who want to buy and sell Safemoon and people who want to hold it. The value has gone down.
Can I ask you a question? It would be interesting to know, and I don't know personally. Do you know how much was in liquidity and about how much you can see total being like sold by them or taken out by them?
I don't know where you can snapshot liquidity. I don't know, but
you'd have to like guesstimate the numbers being sold on Bitmart or something.
Assets page. If you go back onto the assets page, there's like a kind of just below where John's asking Thomas to send him that money to Bitmart, send him those tokens. You can see a kind of sawtooth pattern. Can you see that one?
Yeah, his message to
Yeah, so
Thomas.
just below that, where he says 200 billion to whatever account, the next like
Yeah, yeah.
image is a screen grab of the liquidity pool token balance for the deployer contracts, right? For deployer two, the one that ends CAFDA1. So that balance is where it's climbing. That's swap and liquefy executing and giving them LP tokens, and it's the the from the exploit in the contract, and then where it's dipping, that those dates coincide with them pulling all the liquidity out. So you can see that like initially they have like nearly 20, well probably 23,000 liquidity pool tokens, which is entitling them to tens and tens of thousands of BNB and trillions of Safemoon. They take it out, they let it rise up, they take it out, and then they're kind of doing it very regularly. You can see that all the way down to the end of August.
That's where, because like for me, the main thing that I've wanted to understand whenever I was looking at this as well, and I've kind of taken a break from it, is how responsible are they for the destroying of the price? You know what I mean? Is it mostly them, or is it partially
Uh,
them plus whales?
yeah, like
I'd
that's
really like
hard
to
to
get a
pin
good idea of
down.
that.
That's hard to pin down, but you cannot take like millions of dollars worth of SafeMoon. Don't forget, like when they market bought 58,221 BNBs worth of tokens in one day. That's $34 million. They spent they spent 58,221 BNB, which was worth $34.4 million, and that only gave them 3.8 trillion tokens. So that was worth $34 million, and then they sent all those tokens plus some more that they had to the Bitmart, John's Bitmart deposit. So that's worth $34 million, and sold them.
Yep. So, sorry for making you guys wait so long. If you guys want to come up and ask some questions now, you're welcome to. Go ahead, Armando.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for bringing me up. I just want to say, I started following TNG recently, and I'm telling you, just in my opinion and my observation, this man has more integrity in one pinky than the entire fucking SafeMoon army, plus combined the shitty company that it has become. Like literally, there was a space yesterday where anybody could come up and dispute what this man's saying, with the evidence that he has, and nobody has bothered even to come in and do anything about it. Now today, they're all joking about the fact that the work that he's doing and what he's doing as FUD. How is having evidence to something that you cannot dispute FUD? I don't get it. And then all the joke is the fact that this man was running around with a scarf. I don't know what it was, if it was Gucci or whatever it was. Like, who cares? That to me is like the icing on the cake, or the cherry on top. This guy is making a mockery of the entire holders. Like, I don't understand. I'm like, if it's FUD, call it FUD. But this man has evidence. If you are so, you know, die hard for this token in this community, come up and say the opposite. Show what's going on. And obviously John can't do that because he knows he's doing the wrong thing. Because if it was that simple, he could just come out and just clarify.
Well, thank you. I'll send you that $10 over PayPal for those kind words. um, um, yeah, I agree that yesterday nobody wanted to say anything. Today, I get the feeling that they don't even want to look at it. But it's important information, because laying it out like this, it makes it like really, really, really fucking difficult to say it wasn't theft. And if this volume of theft has gone on, like in aggregate, we're talking of $164 million taken out of liquidity. Obviously, the price of the tokens changes, so we're not expecting to see 164 out and then 164 into a wallet, because they also bought themselves $80 million worth of tokens, so roughly thereabout. I I know what you're saying, and I completely agree when you say things like, if you think you have another explanation for it, then yeah, like come up, because Meris, this whole thing came around because Meris and Champ were talking about how the millions of dollars that John took from Bitmart were proceeds from the market maker. And this is the reason why I sat down with Amy and I said, is there actually any merit to this? Is this something we can investigate? And what we found is that while you can see loads of tokens going to Bitmart, which you could argue say this supports the liquidity for people who want to buy Safemoon on Bitmart. It doesn't support liquidity for people who want to sell Safemoon on Bitmart. In that case, you need to show USDT going to Bitmart as well, and we never see that. We only ever see US Tether coming out of Bitmart into John's wallets or Safemoon wallets, and never the other way around. So that kind of debunked it. But then through debunking that, I go through all this. So yesterday I had a little call with Maris just to kind of show her this like spreadsheet and go over it and show her sort of like explain what the deployer is and explain what Kyle did briefly and then go through to what Thomas and John did. And I think the piece that broke Maris in terms of like thinking, okay, well this is kind of fucked actually, is watching that like 57,000 BNB come out of the liquidity pool and then immediately be used on the 12th of May to market buy like $34 million worth of Safemoon. And that's just a clear artificial pump. Like, you can't argue that that isn't market manipulation. Safemoon have taken money that wasn't theirs, which is theft, and then they've used it to artificially pump the price of their token, which created a huge amount of FOMO, and that's market manipulation. And then they sent those tokens to Bitmart to sell them. So they just kind of fucked all the Safemoon holders over, created a fake all-time high. Everyone was chasing it, going, oh my God, we've just eaten a zero. It's like, we're popping off. And then they dumped the token on Bitmart, create a huge crash. And it's never recovered.
If anybody else had anything they wanted to say, you're definitely welcome to come up. Kenji, could you do me like one favor and like really clarify the difference between what you found recently and what I know we kind of did this at the beginning, but just really separate like before, because a lot of it does seem like, well, we kind of knew a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff before we were overly focused on figuring out where this 5%. Okay, so the way that like Bitmart or Whitebit or any other KEX that holds Safemoon operates is they're not doing anything on a blockchain ledger at all, right? Like, everyone's Safemoon sits in the same big pot in the same wallet, and everyone has an account with Bitmart. So if you had like 1% of the total amount, you're entitled to 1% of the volume from the 5% that gets taken off in the tax, right? What Bitmart agreed with Safemoon is to say, what we'll do is we will pay everybody their reflections that we calculate every month, and then we will give Safemoon 5% of the liquidity side of the tax, which Safemoon should put back in the liquidity pool. So that's what we were trying to find. We're like, where is this 5%? And the interesting thing is, what's that other? They're listed on another exchange called Albank, and Albank publicly disclosed the wallet that they send the Safemoon liquidity to, that they collect. Because again, it's not part of the contract. Like, all this Safemoon 10% tax, it all happens automatically. No one has to push any buttons, right? So when a KEX does it, they have to do it automatically. When people sell a million Safemoon, they're actually selling 900,000, and the 10% is kept behind, and then the Whitebit or Bitmart or whoever just manually figure out, okay, every month we'll do a snapshot of people's holdings. You get this, you get that, and then the 5% goes to Safemoon. So Albank did it publicly. They said, here's the wallet, and you can see it. I can probably share it on the screen if anybody's desperate to see it, but that just holds like a few $100,000 worth of Safemoon in. So we were looking, thinking, okay, well, if Bitmart aren't doing that, are they just sending John like the USD, just sending John the Tether, and then John's, instead of putting it and like buying Safemoon with it, right, and then putting the Safemoon and BNB in a liquidity pool, is he just keeping it for himself? And that was kind of the leading theory, but I don't think it even needs to go that far. Like, they're taking liquidity out and they're just simply selling it. Like, it's much of a more simple explanation, and it makes a lot more sense, and it can be supported quite easily by looking at the price of Safemoon on like PancakeSwap because of arbitrage. If they're selling like $30 million worth of tokens on Bitmart, then people will be, arbitraging between Bitmart and PancakeSwap to make the profit.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people are like, oh, quit talking about this. There's so many other things going on. It's like, it's okay to talk about anything you want to talk
Yeah,
about. And for me,
there's no
like,
statute of limitations on theft. Like people, if someone said to me already,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah.
this is 2 years old," it's like, yeah,
Well,
2 years
one
old,
second,
but
Teen. 1 second. Let me just finish what I was going to say
cool.
real fast. Yeah, you're fine. Is that this is really important because, like, at TNG, you weren't really a part of this community. I think you just always thought Safemoon was bullshit, and you were right. But we didn't have a lot of this information until way later. The only thing we really might have had was the major error in the contract early on, and we just kind of trusted, yeah, these guys will go to jail if they do that. But it seems like selling liquidity, or yeah, doing what they did and then doing it on Bitmart, it kind of like hides what they did to an extent. Like, it looks really bad, but it hides like the most crucial part, which would be the selling of the Safemoon on the sex.
Yeah, because Kyle sold Safemoon just directly on PancakeSwap, like a bunch, and he sold, and then he took the BNB out, and then he traded that for BSD on a different swapping route or whatever he used, different PancakeSwap liquidity pool for BNB and BUSD. But yeah, Kyle also sends a lot of tokens off to other people, and they just sell their tokens straight away. So God knows, that could be for business stuff. But again, it doesn't really matter. Like, they never had a legal entitlement to the money in the first place. They never put that liquidity into the pool. Why do they get to take it out? So same argument there for John and Thomas and Ben Phillips or whoever.
Yeah, and like, just being a part of this community, I think we had such an amazing thing going. If these things didn't happen, I do think that Safemoon could have done like massively well. Like, if liquidity wasn't being taken out, that would have held the price extremely strong. It could have allowed for more FOMO. And then they could have made the V2 and the swap and had money coming in to start spending on products. They still would have had a massive army. The only reason they've lost such a massive following that just other projects wish they could even get a fraction of. That's why people will get on the swap. And I know there is projects that do well out there, but SafeMoon just had a massive community in a way that I haven't really quite seen. And if they just started putting out normal products, like even just the NFT marketplace or other things, that massive community would have blown those things up in the sense that a lot of users would be on it, and that would itself attract other people. Safemoon had everything it needed to be amazing. So it's, for me, like, I just, at being part of that community and all these people and like covering it and talking about it and investing in it, it's extremely important to me to know what went wrong with it so I can watch out in the future. But it's also like, I just kind of want to know how all this ends and like what was the reason for it. I know people that believe in it, they really don't want you talking about the negative things because they think it's going to hurt their bags still. I don't know how it could go down anymore, but that's their thinking. That's just as far as it goes. Is you say negative things about my investment, my bag goes down. Stop doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like you raised a good point actually. Like, none of this information really came out. It certainly wasn't that public until much later on, and especially with the CoffeeZilla stuff, which is a year after all this stuff happened. Coffee came out in April, and all these liquidity movements were in the April of the year before. So you can't really fault anyone. Like, I know you said I never picked it up. It's true. It's just never been my cup of tea. I kind of had a beef against it from the start, because part of the thing that Safemooners were doing was like this daily. They had like a daily task list where they had to like tweet about it and write YouTube comments and upvote a CoinGecko thing. But one of them was also to come onto the fucking cryptocurrency subreddit and make like a post or make some comments, and it was just like, oh God, it was really fucking annoying. It was really annoying because they were just writing the same like nonsense, and you'd be like, no, shut up, go away. And then the next day there'd be like 100, and then the next day there'd be 1,000, and that's partially why Safemoon actually got blacklisted from the cryptocurrency subreddit, because they wouldn't just do that. They would also like make a post and then share it on their Discord and encourage everybody to upvote it. And that's like vote manipulation. And that the subreddit is like a really strong part of the subreddit is we want like natural, honest discussion rather than like what's been manipulated or what's been brigaded. So that's why I've always had a kind of thing against it. But then also, like I said to you kind of at the start of this call, like, a lot of Safemooners have been like quite obnoxious about like, oh, well, I'm going to be a millionaire and I'm going to like do donuts with my Lambo on your lawn. And they're like, okay, mate, see you in a million years, I suppose. yeah, so I think just if anybody else wants to come up, let's cut the monotony of you and me jerking each other off over this. I'm like the worst guest for you to have
Yeah.
because you're so PC and I'm just a foul mouthed British street rat.
Oh, I don't care. I mean, probably the jerking off phrase. Like, you probably could have used a different one right there. But yeah, if anybody wants to come up and say anything, you're definitely welcome to. My goal is not like to, because like for me, in my perspective, enough information's come out that if you're left with Safemoon and you still like believe in everything, then I don't think anything is going to convince anybody at that point unless John is in jail, and even then you might think there's like some CIA conspiracy thing. So it's like, to me, like the light has been shown on like what Safemoon is, unfortunately. And it's just such a shame because it could have been like what everybody wanted it to be. So I'm not one of those people that thinks that like it was always obvious that this was a terrible scam and you're an idiot who fell for it. Because another thing I think about is like when we invest, it's never a guarantee. Like just when you invest in anything, and there was lots of opportunities to make money with SafeMoon, whether
Yeah,
it
yeah.
be like trading or buying the
Oh,
dip or just getting in early and selling high.
yeah.
So you might have projects that seem like they're really good, but then red flags come and it's still an opportunity to take money. And I think that's just how you should approach investments.
It's really important to say that just before we let other people on, that Safemoon did make a ton of millionaires. Like factually, a lot of people put in a few $100 and made millions, and that's cool. Like, honestly, pat on the back. The main issue, and like what you said about if people don't believe it now, then are they ever going to believe it? But that time, that specific time in history, is been and gone, and it's not. I really don't think it's going to come back. So that's basically what I have to say about
that. Yeah. So read some of the YouTube comments. Abraham Rod says, you guys bought a speculating asset and didn't sold when you had the opportunity. Shut up, you resentful bastards.
Wrong.
Mitchell Abbey says, I don't know. Mitchell Abbey says, hey, Crypto Control, have you had a chance to look into this other project? I haven't yet, no. Yeah, and it's probably best to not talk about other projects while you're covering negative stuff on other project, because it just makes it look like you're doing it to shill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that everything looks really bad. And I don't know. For me, I did have a point where I was like, well, maybe they could still come back. I really don't feel that way anymore. I think that it's just downhill from here for Safemoon as far as price and everything. And I know that, I actually don't quite agree. It's a controversial topic with like looking at people's wallets. Like I don't want people to look at my wallets just because I don't want to get hacked. I don't, it's not like I have something to hide from people. I just don't want to get hacked is all. And but other people, I guess, when you get into it, people, they start doxing you and stuff, and you started looking at people's wallets and they started finding out, oh, okay, there is a lot of people who are supporting this and they're way down, and it's like that's just not very convincing that you actually believe in the project, but more so that you're just down so bad that you just can't give up on that. Maybe your wife will divorce you or something if she finds out how down you are on Safemoon.
I was actually talking to somebody the other day who said that his wife found out how much money he'd lost, and he said he's disabled, and basically that he was really hoping that reflections, like as they were being sold to him in early 2021, he was really hoping that reflections would be like a source of passive income for him to support himself while he was disabled. And then he did say that his wife found out how much money he's lost, and he's basically looking. He said he's on the verge of getting a divorce, which is just, it's like awful. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, and it's such a sad story, but it's such a repeatable and relatable story. I think that you still see so many maxis right now with like, I'm going to be a future millionaire, I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family, I'm going to retire off Safemoon, and like that is an implicit amount of emotional investment. So you can't, like, to show somebody like this kind of spreadsheet and show like these are all the transactions, you can see it here, it's in black and white, liquidity removal, sending tokens to Bitmart, blah blah blah. Like it's being like a dream shatterer, and I don't take like a lot of enjoyment out of that. Like I don't wake up and think I'm gonna really disappoint some people, but the reality is, if you want to retire early and you keep throwing money into something where the owners of the token have repeatedly defrauded you, you're not going to retire sooner. You're going to retire a lot later. I don't want anybody to think that I think I'm doing people favors. I'm just being a realist on the situation.
Yeah, no, and it's easy to get toxic when people are like lying about you and like saying terrible things about you. It's hard to just never dish some of that back their way. That was my experience because like I built this channel crypto control off of Safemoon. Like I believed in it, and it's this awesome community. Everybody gets along. And then bad stuff kept happening, and I was like, "Hey guys, we got to talk about this." And then they started turning on me, and I was like, "Oh crap!" But yeah, and then they started lying and they say like all kinds of things about you, like from a death threat to you're lying for views, you're being paid to say these things, and it's like I'm just literally just telling you like the information that you need that's going to help you make money. Like that's what I always say is like when we cover these things at the right time, it gives you the opportunity, that early warning. Like to me, that's what I'm all about in the crypto space is an early warning on a project, whether it be a good project that hasn't spiked yet or a bad project that might be going down soon.
And
so just get them the information, let them decide for themselves. Like that's the only honest way.
The people that join the groups, the people that live and breathe Safemoon, they have the advantage amongst all the other schmucks who just sort of saw it trending on CoinGecko or whatever and decided to throw money into it, because they have the ability to get that information quicker before it percolates through the rest of in the internet. And if they can sit there on Binance Smart Chain and validate it on BSC scan and validate the information, they could be into it. Like Amy, who is really clever, was watching Floki. Okay, and again, I'm not supporting it. Okay, all right. She was seeing that Floki was sending enormous amounts of tokens to places like KuCoin and Bitmart and stuff, and sure enough, she was saying this looks like the kind of movements you get before an exchange lists a token, and sure enough, Floki was listed on them, and they followed a huge pump. So by having your eye on the ball, having that insider information, you can place yourself in a more advantageous position. And the same goes the other way. If you can find information before it percolates through to the rest of the internet, like if people listen to Bootsy and Strider, who were in late 2021 saying Safemoon is not what it seems and they've made enormous amounts of profits, then they would have made a lot more money by just getting out of Safemoon than the people who waited until CoffeeZilla, where it became like a lot more public.
I think there's similarities in that to FTX, where everybody thought, well, surely we can't all have fallen for this, and somebody would have found out, right? Yeah. So I think there's just a lot of that going on. Go ahead, Armando, how's it going?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something literally like in closing, basically, because I'm actually a Safemoon holder, but at this point, like I began as a holder, as a supporter of the community, and literally like it's literally flipped on me. Like I feel like I'm a Safemoon hostage at this point in time. Like I can't go nowhere because what I'm gonna do? Just walk away from my losses. So I'm telling you, if this thing goes even up to where I bought in, or even a penny above, I'm out. And like I said, I'm a good judge of character. I know you're a good guy, Crypto, TNG, Damn Son, and Salmon. Anybody else, man, forget about it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I invited you to co-host because it doesn't show me sometimes, and nobody's raising their hand right now, right?
Just put a thing on screen if you want to come up, like a heart or something if you want to come up. Yeah, okay. I'm not. Yeah, your spaces are so broke on this.
I know. And I get a lot of flack for it. Like I'm like purposely like, oh, I'm not going to let that guy up. So
if you want to come up to speak, put a heart emoji on, because we generally haven't seen anybody raising their hand, and this is a common crypto control issue. Classic.
I'm kind of interested in what you said. It would be interesting to learn that Amy is an interesting character because she hates my guts, and she appears to hate CoffeeZilla as well.
No,
but she also seems really smart in another sense.
You have to speak the lingo. You know, you've got to butter her up a bit, and then she stops giving you death threats. She's really
That's
intelligent,
nice.
really intelligent. I mean, yeah, she does like solidity contract analysis as part of her prior career. So, you know, like Amy is the one who found the exploit in Orbital Shield that's still in there now, where you can get anybody's password just like that. And she got the guy who made it, what's his name, Lynn Spraggs or Lynn Scraggs, I can't remember which one is the fun parody one and which one
Yeah,
the guy. She got his password.
Really?
Yeah. But didn't do anything. She just messaged it to him, and then he left Safemoon like a couple of days later. Apparently, I haven't validated that. That's what she said. But yeah, I've seen what his password is. But yeah, it's
well, TNG. How do you? I'm just curious if you don't mind me asking you these questions real quick, because it's just getting anyone's opinion is nice. You feel like we're headed for another bull run next year?
Yeah, sure. If you look at a guy called Dave the Wave on Twitter, he posts bar none the best like reality of the situation, and he's had like a chart for Bitcoin going since 2018 or 2017, and it's just nailed it. 2016 even, and it's just nailed it.
What is he? What is his
Dave
name?
the Wave. The handle is like
Dave
Dav the Wave. It's missing the E, but yeah, Dave the Wave is the fucking G. He is, because there's just no emotion. There's no hopium. He correctly called the top in September 21, and he correctly called the bottom, or what? Well, we'll see. But he's correctly called the bottom in the last bear market, and then what he believes to be the bottom in this one. So, yeah, I think it looks like, barring some absolutely catastrophic black swan event, that 15K for Bitcoin is as low as it'll go.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, like, I'm kind of excited, but I feel like there's going to be all kinds of opportunities. There's probably going to be some huge project we've never heard of. It's going to get a ton of traction from people that are getting into crypto. And so I'm just like trying to get ready to make good decisions for this next bull run that we're about to go on, probably. So yeah, I just want to say real quick for anybody on the YouTube or Twitter side of things, if you guys have a project that you think is like has potential to make people a lot of money, you can reach out to me and I can look at it and potentially cover it. If you know a project that needs dev work or videos to cover them, then you can also reach out to me for that as well. And I know a dev team that is trusted in the space, and I also can make content explainer videos, and a lot of projects need that. And if you're looking for new projects to make money, obviously you can check out my channel. I'm always trying to find that project and help people make money is my goal. And my goal is just to help you. For me, it's like people over projects. I focus on the people before the project. Even if I'm like friends with the people on the project, whatever, I will still prioritize the investors and with my messages saying, hey guys, the money the price might go down and you might have to look at selling. So just wanted to put that out there real quick. And I think we do have one more person that wants to come up. Hey, what's up, Overwatcher?
I think I accepted him at the same time, and it's obviously just completely bamboozled Twitter. There we go.
Hey, are you there, Overwatcher? You just gotta unmute your mic. Okay. Maybe he just wanted to hang out with us or something. Just be up here on stage.
Don't blame him.
But yeah, as far as Safemoon, I kind of just have been like, well, I don't see any point in covering that. I feel like we've covered everything, other than maybe potential lawsuits and stuff coming out on like where is the story going, and if any new revelations come out, then I'll probably cover that. But otherwise, I'm just trying to focus on the next bull run and on helping people make money and making money myself is my goal. But I feel like this information you got, it's hard for me to get a clear picture of what exactly, because it just seems like they were doing migrations and they were able to take BNB and sell it from that, but it seems like it's like no, they were also able to get LP tokens through part of the contract, which was a major warning in the contract with the audit, which
Yeah.
by they also were able to get LP tokens. And
Well,
the
the whole
time,
reason they're
okay,
able to the whole reason they're able to extract the liquidity in the first place to do a migration is because they were gaining these LP tokens. So you have to think, right? This is the precarious situation that Safemoon would have found them in if their contract didn't have an exploit in it. Because as I said, the original PancakeSwap liquidity pool is hard coded into the Safemoon contract. They don't say, okay, we want to trade on PancakeSwap and this is the contract address. So when PancakeSwap said, oh, we've upgraded, we've got a V2 of our swap, Safemoon had to change that where things are being traded to. So if they didn't have the LP tokens, then all of that liquidity would have just been it would have just vanished. It would have just been stuck there, and they wouldn't be able to extract it. What they'd have to do is wait for everybody, I suppose, to sell the token and then move it across into move the BNB across. But it's such a simple, plain, and easy thing to do. If you need to move liquidity from one pool to another, you give the pool your liquidity tokens, you get your assets back, and then you put both that pair of assets into the new liquidity pool, and you get the new liquidity pool tokens back. But instead, just for anyone new, what they did is they extracted the liquidity. So they took out hundreds of thousands of BNB. They took out trillions of Safemoon tokens. They kept the Safemoon tokens for themselves. They bought themselves more Safemoon tokens with the BNB, which is the holder's money. And then they took all of that combination of Safemoon tokens, and most of that went to Bitmart to sell. And then a lot of that went to just various other recipients. So essentially, they've just taken loads of liquidity out of the pool.
is that your girlfriend or wife?
That's my wife singing the fucking song from Encanto. That I was making a planter for some strawberries earlier, and she came out and just said, "We don't talk about Bruno," and that was it. It was just in my head for like the next hour and a half, driving me mad. But yeah, that's her.
All right. Well, thanks for joining TNG. And yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, like I said,
I'm not surprised nobody wants to come up and talk because there really isn't another conclusion to this.
I think it's mostly just like you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, there's not really, I used to debate a lot of different topics, and it's kind of the last resort when you don't really have the logic on your side is just to say, don't listen to them, and they resorted to that pretty heavily as far as like blocking.
Yeah.
Like I always did it respectfully too. I was like, guys, this is your investment and people's monies are on the line. Like you have to consider the effect you have on other people. And they'd be like, nah, you paid fodder, block. Everybody block crypto control, so
Yeah.
everybody gets that treatment. But I think
Well,
that people are still interested. They may not want to talk or debate, but I think that people still want to know, like,
yeah,
okay,
there's been
what
people
happens?
who have sat in this group I've seen, but last chance, I guess, because if you want to come up, just flash the heart emoji because crypto space is broken. So last time, and then I'm going to go and enjoy my evening.
I guess maybe like a last thing to touch on would be that like the lawsuits going on right now. I think there's still like multiple lawsuits going on, and some of that might lead to like discovery or something like that. Do you know? Are you keeping up with
Yeah,
that at all?
yeah. So a lot of people don't know. Again, this information was kind of suppressed among the maxis, or they had a wacky explanation. John, in the class action lawsuit, approached the plaintiffs' lawyers and tried to get a settlement agreed. So this has been going on for a year now. This court case is just about 11 months, and at this point, obviously, what they're arguing is the same thing that I'm showing. It's pump and dumping, right? Safemoon pump and dumping. This is what they're arguing. This is what the class action's about. It's not just about Jake Paul and Soldier Boy and Ben Phillips and whoever. It's about Safemoon also participating in this. And what we're seeing, again, is Safemoon taking the liquidity, artificially buying tokens, which is pumping it, and then selling the tokens on Bitmart and getting the USD tether out, which is dumping it. So John approached the plaintiff's lawyers with a settlement, and this is all on the Combs et al. Versus Safemoon et al. Docket on the US government websites, and you can pay it 30 cents or something and get the get the sheet. So yeah, he approached the plaintiffs with a settlement, and they said it's not enough, and they've basically said no. On the other side, which is John suing his mum, a lot of the details it's more tight-lipped because it's kind of ongoing and nothing's being like written down on record. And obviously, I know there's a bias where everybody thinks their own side is doing really well, but David, who is in court along with his sister, which is John's mum, Jennifer Crony, are just saying that they're killing it. Basically, like, Jennifer Crony will go through a round of questioning from John's lawyers, and they can't like score a single point against her. Like they'll grill her for like 4 hours and get nothing. And just basically saying John seems to be really agitated and angry in court, and that sort of points towards that things aren't going the way he hoped. So yeah, I know there's a narrative being spun where apparently Jennifer's embezzled $5 million that John, and don't forget where the source of that $5 million came from, that John invested in ECG. He's saying John is claiming that Jennifer embezzled it, but an important piece of information is that Jennifer's testimony to the court was sworn, meaning she's under threat of perjury or something if it's found she's lying, and John didn't swear any kind of like oath or any, I don't know what the terminology is, but John just gave like basically a hearsay statement, and that's what the maxis are running with.
Okay, that's interesting. What's your quickly like take on like the SEC and Safemoon and what that could potentially lead to? What's your take on that?
It's the SEC is moving at snail's pace. If you go on the SEC website and you search on their press releases section for crypto, you can see all the sort of different crypto companies they've prosecuted, and a lot of these are like things that nobody would have even heard about because they're already like 4 years old at this point. It's from even before like the 2017 bull market. They've only just caught up to Justin Sun, and I think they've only just put some fines on Jake Paul for I can't remember, what was it, for CryptoZoo, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't take the fact that no charges have been raised against Safemoon at this present time as an endorsement or proof of legitimacy, because eventually, like, this information, either from myself or from Coffee or from even Thomas, even an insider to Safemoon, will find its way to whoever needs to see it. I've said before that kind of supporting Safemoon at this point in time, it feels a lot like playing musical chairs in a room that has far fewer chairs than there are people. And the music will stop and a lot of people will be sort of left dazed and confused by it. That's what I think will happen anyway.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate everybody stopping by today. And like I said, you guys let's help each other find some good projects and just help each other do good in this space. And if TNG, if there's anything else you wanted to say, go ahead.
No, that's it. I know to come up. It's not going to be like a 2-on-1, crypto hold your arms behind your back while I punch you in the stomach. Like, I just want to have a dialogue. Like, I had a long dialogue with Marish yesterday where we were going over this, and it's not like good positive information, but it's information that needs to go out there. If you're invested in it and you believe in the project, then it kind of shows that the reality of the opening months of Safemoon have just been a massive fraud, and you could then construe that everything that happens afterwards is John kind of scrambling to paint a veneer of legitimacy on the project. And if that's all he's trying to do is appear legitimate in the eyes of the FBI or the SEC, then how much value is that going to generate for you as a holder? How much can social media pump Safemoon up and hype Safemoon when there is literally a Safemoon army, but it's people who have lost so much money and they're pissed off. That's where the real army is. That's where the real bulk of holders lie. It's people who have lost thousands of dollars and just want to get out. I just can't see it as a good investment. And I really take like issue with people who constantly like sing its praises on Twitter, and inevitably, you find out what their wallet is, and you find out they've lost like $27,000 to it, and you think, Jesus, well, this is an explanation for your behavior. But yeah, I mean, it's what, the fourth time anybody wants to come up, and I'll quickly go over the findings. But if not, I'm bouncing.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well, and people have had an opportunity to come up. Like I said, people know if I start a space on Safemoon not to join. They warn each other and stuff. But if you're looking to like discuss with them, which I was as well, because they attacked me so much and other people so much, that I'm like, hey, let's reason this out, because I don't have ill intentions towards you, and I feel like you're the one with the problem, and you're also the one that's wrong about all this. But it's just kind of, I think that's just hit an end point where you have a few people left. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, everybody. And we'll see you in the next video, live space, wherever I see you guys.
Yeah. Cheers for having me up. Anyway.